Good afternoon. This is my case study on internet use violations, threats on the World Wide Web. My name is Abby Hancock, and this is for school law in the spring semester of 2016 for Fort Hays State University. Category 1, problem identification and analysis. Let's talk about what I know. I know that our case study today will be set at Roosevelt High School in a high-performing school in a financially secure area. Students and parents here have access to new technology and just general upcoming trends. I also know that one of our significant players is Dr. Stephen Forbes, who's the principal of the school and recent principal of the year. He's definitely somebody who wants to maintain the reputation of the school. Another player in our case study I know is Miss Walker, who's in her first year of teaching specialized science courses. She's really qualified for her job in terms of teaching the rigorous science courses, but kids say that her class is really difficult. She's really strict, the workload and instruction can be stressful at times, and the structured approach is hard for some kids to understand. Despite some suggestions, Ms. Walker has not been able to very well establish good relationships with her students, and lots of students and parents too complain about her instruction and workload. Unfortunately, the other component of this case study is that Ms. Walker recently received an anonymous email instructing her to look at an anonymously built website, and the website contained vulgar, inappropriate comments directed mostly at her, one of which seemed like an indirect, potentially even veiled threat against her. The wordage was something like, "Who else would like to make Miss Walker disappear?" Upon reading this, of course, Miss Walker phoned Dr. Forbes, who instructed her to print the email, to not panic yet, maybe help him identify some possible suspects, and just kind of wait for tech support and law enforcement to get involved. She also mentioned that because she felt unsafe, she was going to stay with her parents for the evening. For the remainder of the case study, I'll be acting as Dr. Forbes, discussing what I decide to do and what I need to know. So as Dr. Forbes, here are some things I need to know. First thing I need to know is Ms. Walker safe being in our school, or is she safe currently, even with her parents? Are the threats indirect, as I kind of suspect, or is there an actual planned threat being made against her? I also need to know, was the person who made the website and sent the anonymous email the same person are they all the same person, or is it a group of angry kids, or is it possible that the creator of the websites is a parent? I also need to know how public the website is. Is it something that all students know about? I need to know if there were interactions between Ms. Walker and a student that would have led to the angry creation of this website. I'd also need to know if our district tech support team can trace anonymous domains like this, or if the website or email that was generated was using a school device. I also obviously need to know why the student created the website and why this person felt like this was an appropriate outlet. Obviously, I also need to find out what can be done to improve the classroom dynamic and environment in Ms. Walker's class. So here are some problems that I've identified. Ms. Walker does not feel safe in our school. She's very upset by this email and by this website, and she certainly feels like this threat may be serious. She is entitled to feel reasonably safe at her place of work, and she deserves for this issue to be resolved as quickly as possible. I do know that one of the problems is Ms. Walker's reputation and her class potentially. Her first year hasn't gone quite as well as probably she or I would have wanted. So it's obvious that she's going to need more support as we continue through this process so she can be better for all students. I do know that a problem is that technology or technological conduct has been misinterpreted by some students. Another problem is the perpetrator of this anonymous website and email is currently anonymous, and so there's going to have to be a lot of hands on deck to figure out the source of this threat and or website. We will also probably need to, a problem is we are going to have to enforce some disciplinary actions on the other end of this identification process. So category 2, what is my proposed plan of action with appropriate strategies for implementation? So rather broadly, I've got a kind of 4-step process plan of action of which will be implemented more specifically. The first is to identify and document things. I need to identify perpetrators and document what I find. I need to communicate with all parties at stake. I need to observe Ms. Walker and the students in her classroom, and I need to ultimately resolve the conflict. These steps at first I think would happen in order, but they would be continuously circled back to and through as we resolve the issues at hand. So steps for implementing my plan. I'm going to start by identifying and documenting. Through the help of local law enforcement and our tech team, we're going to work to identify the IP address that first made this website and the anonymous email so that we can properly identify the creator of this website and email. If the IP address cannot be located and it truly remains anonymous, and even if it can be, I think I'll ask Ms. Walker if she would allow myself or other members of my admin team to collect documentation from other students about the nature of the website's creation. Hopefully she wouldn't be embarrassed by that, and she would be supportive of the fact that we want to get to the bottom of this. She mentioned that Randy Franks might be a possible suspect because he doesn't like her, but I will not be singling out Randy Franks. I might include him as part of random interviews, but he won't be singled out alone. Obviously, I'll document and copy the website's information and have it taken down immediately by tech support. And with local law enforcement's help, it's necessary to determine if the threat is malicious in intent so that a threat assessment can be conducted if and when we're able to locate and identify the perpetrator. Assuming the website has been made by a student, we'd obviously identify appropriate disciplinary actions to be enforced after the threat assessment has been conducted. Another, or my step 2, which is communication. There's lots of people to communicate with. First and foremost, law enforcement and district technology, potentially even the superintendent, about identification and district protocol for technology misconduct. I need to communicate with tech support about how the domain of the web address can be taken down as quickly as possible, and communicate with the identified student's parents after he or she has been identified. Obviously, this would happen immediately and throughout the process of a threat assessment. And another consideration is that if no identification can be made, with Ms. Walker's permission, I would like to send a letter to parents in her class informing them of this issue and asking for their help in identifying the builder of this website. I would definitely wait to send out that letter before I had Ms. Walker's permission to do so. And then, of course, I want to definitely communicate with Ms. Walker about her well-being, her state of mind, and all processes of the situation as they develop. Third, I'd like to observe. After these threats have kind of been disseminated, analyzed, and maybe even identified, it's important to observe the classroom dynamic with written observation so that additional help can be given to her about the improvement of her dynamic. Despite our school's reputation, it would not be appropriate to fire Ms. Walker currently or for this situation. She needs additional support and chances for the improvement of her instruction. We hired her because she's very well qualified. She just might need a little bit more help in delivering that information to students in better ways. I'd obviously continue to observe and review and discuss with students about their experiences in Ms. Walker's classroom, as well as observe her gradebook and her interactions with her students. Ultimately, we're going to resolve this conflict. We need Ms. Walker to feel comfortable at her place of work. It is her right. So it's imperative that we determine if the threat is credible, malicious, or just a prank. No matter what, we will certainly take the student out of her class for the semester if we can identify him or her. If the threat was identified and tracked to an IP address at our school or using a device given to students through our school, using our district's internet policy, we can exact disciplinary action through these means via the student code of conduct. I would be interested in implying some restorative justice practices as an option, but until we have more details about all of this, it's not a must yet. In the weeks and months to follow, I definitely want to make sure that I'm supporting Ms. Walker. There's no need to fire her or over-observe her. She needs a little bit more refined of a plan to follow, so she has a pedagogical improvement. But she's the trusted, authoritative figure in the classroom. And while her teaching instruction may need a little bit of adjusting, she should be the trusted figure in the classroom, and I would like to model that for her students. Finally, we're going to resolve the issues based on promoting the success of all students. So what's best for students by promoting the success of all students? Number one, the safety and general well-being of all members in a classroom is best for students. By immediately responding to this issue, it suggests that our school and my team value the safety and efficiency of the learning environment. When threats happen in the future, students, parents, and staff should be relieved to know how quickly and seriously we take all types of threats, even ones that are meant to be pranks. Second, we are promoting the success of all students by modeling the trust that our school and our admin team has in Ms. Walker as the trusted authoritative figure in the classroom. By trusting her, we show that using technology poorly is a grounds for getting us involved pretty seriously, especially when it's technologically anonymous. Finally, by improving her class overall and implementing a plan for improvement, this can only help students feel more comfortable and better instructed in her classroom. All students will benefit from resolving these issues, the foundational issues of this problem. When Ms. Walker tries to improve her classroom instruction, it will hopefully improve the attitude and access to learning all students have. A resolution of the problem in summary, we're going to immediately request the disabling of the website. We'll conduct a thorough and fair investigation at the police and district level for all parties at stake, including the threat credibility. We're going to remove the perpetrating students from her classroom and the inciting of specific behavioral punishments for that student. We're going to implement a plan to help Ms. Walker become a better teacher for our school. And we're going to remind students the appropriate uses of technology via our school's monthly newsletter or monthly newspaper. Category 4, the problem based on what I was thinking, feeling, valuing, and some unresolved issues. During the time of reading through and thinking about this issue, I was thinking, is everyone safe? How can we quickly fix this? Am I being ethically sound? Am I doing what's best for kids? Have I missed anything? Do we have current punishments in place? I was valuing the safety and well-being of my staff and the efficiency of my team to resolve these issues as quickly as possible. I valued the opinions of Ms. Walker and her students, and I valued good classroom instruction, no doubt. I also valued Ms. Walker's authoritative presence in her classroom. At the time, though, I was feeling concerned about the safety of the classroom, and I was upset that students couldn't use technology appropriately. I was also disheartened by the anonymity of the website, and thus more concerned that the problem may set a precedent for other students about other teachers. Which speaks to some of the unresolved issues. Obviously, one of the unresolved issues is if we can locate the perpetrator. Another unresolved issue is that the site may take some time being disabled, and that could only encourage rumors, or other students could see this technological misconduct and run with this problem. And another unresolved issue is the improvement of Ms. Walker's teaching is yet to be determined. We're going to give her a lot of tools, but it's ultimately up to her to kind of put those tools into place. More permanent job security may be in question if improvements aren't made the rest of the semester. Another unresolved issue is that there might be other potentially as serious technological resources students are using that our staff doesn't know about, that I need to know about so that I can be on top of their use in my school. So reflecting on Standard 5, I demonstrated a sense of integrity and ethical behavior by not outrightly firing Ms. Walker for concerns before or during the time of the situation. Instead, as a team, we're going to work to strategize with her some additional ways in which to be successful, and we will continue to monitor that as we continue through the semester. I demonstrated this integrity and ethics by trusting her as the acting authority in the classroom, and we communicated with students that this type of behavior is not allowable towards another person in the school. We demonstrate that the way in which these students use technology is not supported by the team, so that students see Ms. Walker and myself as serious about this misconduct. I also demonstrated a sense of integrity and fairness ethical behavior, by not singling out the students in Ms. Walker's class, like Mr. Franks, and making sure that everyone's voice has been heard, not just the likely suspects. Treated people fairly, equitably, and with dignity by sympathizing with and supporting Ms. Walker while she aired her concerns. If a student was identified, I took the student out of her class for the semester. I allowed students to speak on their own behalf through an interviewing and observation process, which was a fair, equitable, and dignified process. And as long as the threat was not deemed too credible or too malicious, I would allow this perpetrating student or group of students a chance at some kind of a restorative justice practice, such as a chance to apologize in person or some kind of agreed upon punishment by all parties at stake here. Finally, I demonstrated a personal and professional code of ethics by following a fair and timely process for the investigation. I didn't jump to any conclusions about Ms. Walker or the students in her classroom, including Mr. Franks. I allowed the police and the district tech support teams to conduct their own investigations, separate from any agenda I personally had towards her classroom, or the matter at hand. I followed procedures and protocol for threat assessments and due process for students. I followed behavioral punishments for technology misconduct of this kind, as agreed upon by our school and our district. Overall, this process can be resolved by implementing several ethical and fair processes that can benefit all stakeholders in this situation. Thank you.